right, well, welcome everyone. My name is Chris Richardson. I'm a Deputy CIO here in University Technology Office. And thanks for joining us. We're talking about this group's insights by role for operating Agile, and we're using the mobile app as an example. Be prepared in just a minute. We're going to do a quick poll to see how we align. So hopefully you're paying attention. I'd like to just see where your baseline is for Agile. But again, we're going to talk about some themes that you'll hear throughout. And again, this is really just our perspective. We're not claiming to be Agile experts. I'll be talking about kind of the exec sponsor view, how to get the things started planning. Lisa McIntyre from the Provost office is going to talk about the functional product view. Kelly Mukherjee from UTO will talk about the product side from the technical orientation. And then Krista Coblentz, also from UTO, will talk about the developer view. I think we'll have some fun talking about what's going on in Agile and what's holding us back in Agile for breakout sessions, and we'll summarize at the end. So with that, I am going to share it with you, Kim, to bring up the poll. And while Kim's bringing up the poll, again, some things to remember. We're not coming at you with like hard definitions of Agile, but we're talking about things we've learned while we've been doing this from our perspective roles.
I actually think you have to take me off of the control because it took away my bottom control panel. Sorry.
Okay, good to know. How about now?
Yeah, it's good. Thank you.
Perfect. All right, so just pick how you orient to Agile. It'd be great to see kind of what the group thinks, where they're at. Give it a few seconds here. Excellent. Over 50%. Keep voting. Let's see. All right, maybe a few stepped away. All right, so more coming in. All right, we're going to end the polling, so thanks for that. All right. So clearly we range from a mix of people strongly believe, agree, about kind of the top. It's still quite a few, so hopefully you'll get quite a bit out of this. All right, so let's keep moving. Again, this is just an intro. These are themes you'll hear from our perspectives. Planning. I once heard that Agile was an excuse to get started. You didn't have to plan. I highly disagree. In the planning, make sure you'll focus on the mission. Resources, really important. If you can get dedicated resources, do that. If not, at least relatively unencumbered capacity to work toward that vision. Super important to know what the roles and responsibilities, so put some time into that. Also, accountability. Accountability is not just a leadership function. So there's accountability to every role, even independent, the individual contributors. So really focus there. In the process of these things, build trust. You're working across group silos, you're working across functions, and that trust will pay dividends throughout the project or the initiative. Also, focus on channels. How do you communicate? How do you make decisions? There's no one size fits all, so really put some energy into that. Give the team the full context wherever possible. This isn't a way to just build a bunch of requirements and throw them over the wall to the developer. Also keep flexibility in mind. Your assumptions when you start are going to be very different once you get into it, and you'll see that throughout this year too. And finally, Agile is not about technology. It's really the experience of working together, as well as the experience you're delivering. Okay, so with that, once again, for those who joined late, my name is Chris Richardson, Deputy CIO in UTO. I'll be focusing kind of on the planning side and how the executive sponsor functions. And my story will be more about the genesis of the ASU mobile app. I'm coming up on 5 years here at ASU. I know on my day 2, when I started, there was a lot of interest in a mobile app, and the image on the lower left was what we had at the time. There was a lot of noise calling it a link farm. I know one person said it's long in the tooth, we need to get moving. But what I noticed is that it wasn't necessarily designed for students with the group that represents students. And so I was very nervous to just jump in and get started. And so I know the Marketing Hub wanted to build Sunday Awards, and there was a whole outline there. And so we ended up saying, hey, why don't you go build it? And our team built some of the early microservices that are still in use today with the mobile app. However, they were done for the Sunder Rewards. I think our big start back in that story was what I called beta for the beta. We were doing some work in Sun Devil Stadium, what we call a smart stadium, a bunch of prototypes, and we started with some sensors in partnership with Intel. But as we were exploring what we could do with sensors, with the provost asked, could we do the same with beacons and determine attendance? And this was really fun. I think from the time we got buy-in of what the parameters were from the provost, we worked with Fred Corey as champion, Lisa McIntyre is on here, Chuck Haslick. The time we got agreement on what we were going to do to delivering something where 4 classes with 3 professors and all their students were testing this app, went from ideation to deploy, I think in only 3 months, which was pretty amazing. And a lot of the way we built that for the attendance app became vital for the ASU mobile app. The kind of yellowish text in the upper right was actually an email I got from Fred Corey, I think in October of 2017. And he said, hey, I've talked to the provost, I've talked to the president. We'd like these 8 to 10 processes to come to live in a mobile app. We'd really like to explore working with UTO to do that. And I'm like, I think it was called the Achievement mobile app at the time. And they definitely wanted to modernize communications. They wanted to personalize all the information. But I just said, Fred, hey, your group only owns about 2 of these 10 processes. What do you say we get everyone together that owns the other processes, included EOS, other parts of the provost office? He said, oh, good idea. So we all got together, unanimously, everyone wanted to move forward. And I said, well, what about the students? What if we built a survey and really understood what they want? So Lisa raised her hand, said, hey, I do surveys all the time. Everyone agreed. She put a great survey. Lo and behold, they identified about 4 processes or improvements that this group hadn't even thought of. And again, of the 14 total, not every one of them made it in the fall 18 launch, but we came back, the technical team, we knew some of the things we'd done with the attendance app, some of the things we wanted to do with the existing ASU mobile app. We just started doing. We kind of reoriented, built in a reusable microservice format on the AWS platform. We focused on open APIs. And in all this time from the October of the original processes to about February timeframe of 2018, we finally had full agreement on what we wanted to do. And we took a big risk. The technical team said, look, we can convert the mobile app into a beta in the new way by April so that we can start testing it while students are here and throughout the summer before we launch in August. And that was really amazing because we knew we were getting some dedicated resources. Plus, Lisa at the time was saying, look, to the rest of the provost office, we need to make sure that we have the capacity to work hand in hand in this new Agile way, as well as EOS. We need to be able to use the tool, contribute to the tool, be prepared to communicate to the tool. A big part of it was the upper right corner, you'll see the content management system or the push notifications. So, that's really how things got started. And then now my role has evolved pretty significantly as getting the student side off the ground. We've got a ton of success. We're coming up on 2 years since that fall of 18 launch. So now it's finding adjacent areas. Sunder Rewards, we're looking at doing some bringing back into the mobile app now with the marketing hub. That'll open up avenues to do some work with the alumni groups of ASU. We're also thinking about how we might engage students and faculty. So a lot there to pack in. But now I want to turn it over to Lisa and talk about more of the functional view. So Lisa, take it away.
All right, thanks, Chris. So my name is Lisa McIntyre. I'm the Executive Director for Student Success Innovations in the University Provost Office, and my team serves as the functional product owner for the ASU mobile app. So as Chris shared, okay. There we go. Okay. As Chris shared, there were quite a few stakeholder groups that had responsibility for engagement. We quickly pivoted from an achievement app to being focused on students' engagement in their university experience. So one of the very first things that we did was to think about how are we going to do our work together, both in an agile methodology, but also in a way that we ensured participation from the various functional stakeholder groups that had some ownership of students' engagement at the university. So this graphic is something that we put together. It was really the very first thing we did as a team. And it was really useful in helping our executive leadership understand how we were going to do work together, that it was going to look different, it was going to be different, and help manage expectations in that regard. But also really helpful in engaging and onboarding new stakeholders. As we deploy new functionality, we often are having to engage new functional stakeholders across the university into this work. So keeping the core project team small and able to be agile, but also in a way that allowed us to bring other folks to the table when we needed to. The other thing, the other thing that was really helpful was acknowledging that this way of working was a transition, right? So I've been working with UTO since 2010 on different projects, and definitely was used to a methodology where the functional group, spent a lot of time writing very detailed requirements and crossing our fingers that we got everything in that first documentation, because we knew if we missed anything at go live, it would probably be months before we were able to add any new enhancements to the product. And so, the goal wasn't to do Agile perfectly. The goal was to meet the project goals and design a way to work together that worked the best for all of our teams. So admittedly, very early on, some assumptions were made about what that work would look like. So our very first functionality was focused on delivering push notifications through the mobile app. And we started by documenting user stories, which was new to me. I was used to user requirements. And at the same time, we were documenting user stories for what we now call the content management system, which is essentially the backend that allows different functional groups across the university to push notifications to students through the mobile app. So we've been testing functionality of the mobile app, and I want to say we were like 24 hours from a no-go decision. And I pick up the phone panicked to the project manager and say, where's the content management system? Like, we haven't tested anything. And they're like, well, that's not in this phase. And I'm like, well, what do you mean it's not in this phase? We did requirements for it at the same time. And I'm kind of panicked because in my mind, if we don't get this with go live, it's going to be months before we get this. And we're going to be dependent on UTO managing lists of students to push notifications to. So that was an early miss. I think what's worked is that, and what is quite different, I think, in this methodology than others is the importance of relationships, right? So being transparent, communicating, understand what success looks like, both for the technical teams and the functional teams, and trying to align there. And frankly, we're learning things all the time, right? So every sprint, we learn new ways about what works. And we've really been intentional in scheduling reoccurring time to have those conversations, both as a group and with our peers in a one-to-one way. And then finally, I would say, I think documentation of how you're going to work is a non-negotiable, right? So things move really quickly in this format, especially if it's a new methodology for your functional user. I think having that documentation really allows you to have a neutral and productive conversation when things don't go as expected, and inevitably that's going to happen. And so that's been some things that have worked well for us. And so Kelly's going to show you kind of how we actually document and work through those expectations that we've aligned on.
Thank you, Lisa. All right. Well, hello everybody. My name is Kelly Mukherjee. I'm the technical product manager for the ASU mobile app. My job is to manage the life cycle of a product from start to finish, or from concept to deployment into the app stores. So our team has been working, like Chris said, for about 2 years now on the ASU mobile app. And we were one of the first teams at UTO to adopt the Agile methodology, which has been really helpful in delivering quick value to our customers. I work with the customers to understand their needs and translate them into those user stories that Lisa was talking about, and acceptance criteria so we can test against them in a consumable way for our technical designers and developers to execute upon. Also help to prioritize our work and manage the product roadmap. Now, in working with the ASU mobile app team, really there are two key elements that I think we've learned along the way for success in this type of role. And those two key elements are orchestration and communication. And the Agile methodology and approach helps us achieve these two. So when it comes to orchestration, I have to first give kudos. Oops, let me go back one. I really have to express how grateful I am for the whole team coming together as a whole, because because we're part of a big team that really cares about creating a quality product. And it's that mindset that I think is really one of our key elements and one of our key learnings on the ASU mobile app team. So first of all, really grateful for a really talented team who cares. And just to talk about our team collaboration, I'd like to use the library integration as an example. The library team came to us with some requests, such as, can we get our students to reserve study rooms through the ASU mobile app? And can we show live occupancy data? I mean, these are really cool features. So we really listened to them, put them in terms of user stories. And then once we understood those requirements, our team was so amazing to respond. Our mock-ups by our UI UX team could be delivered in like 1 to 2 weeks for our customers to take a look at. And then in terms of a product development, 3 to 6 weeks, we could get something out the door for our team to evaluate, which is pretty incredible compared to the olden days when I used to work at AT&T, and sometimes it would take months to years before you got a product out to show people. So in that same respect, we also worked with our BI and analytics team to make sure we had dashboarding and reporting capabilities to show some analytics and what was going on in the ASU mobile app. And of course, an incredible marketing and communications team and effort to get the message out so students would know about our new features. When it comes to communication, I'd say that the words in bold are some of our lessons learned. These are the key things that really help aid in good communication. And for our team, we also rely on some great collaboration tools to leverage. For example, Google Docs is something that we use. Google Spreadsheets, we use a lot for collaboration with like the Provost office and EOS and our library team or whoever we're working with. That's where we keep our meeting agendas, our action items, all of our notes. We also leverage Jira a lot, as you'll see here in the screenshot. We utilize a Kanban board for visualization so we can see the columns in which our tickets are, and our team can really work together to push through to the endpoint. And of course, on a daily basis, can't forget Slack and Zoom to make sure that we are further clarifying and working as a team. So the benefits we've seen in working in an Agile methodology are listed here, but I do want to say it's so satisfying to see the result of using Agile. We get to make customers happy frequently, and plus we're always trying to make things better. So with that, I'll hand it over to Krista to talk about the development.
Thanks, Kelly. So I'm Krista Coblentz. I'm a developer with UTO, work on the mobile app. Let's see. I don't know if I have control. There we go. There we go. The biggest thing we learned about development for the ASU mobile app 2.0 is that devs absolutely need to speak up. You know, as other ones people have pointed out, traditionally devs are just used to being handed what needs to be done and just getting it done. With this method, we needed to be involved and help out in what can and cannot be done within a sprint. This is just done, or that specific portion we've just done within our internal dev team, so everyone feels comfortable speaking up and saying what they think they can and cannot get done within that timeline. It really helps the entire communication flow so no one ends up blindsided by something not getting done or not having enough time to get that thing done. With this, we also had to learn that features can be released that are not, 100% done. This way, we break down a large feature into small portions and then just gradually release it. This really helps make a better overall product. As for extra work, we really have only added daily stand-ups and we do releases every 2 weeks. Daily stand-ups are just a quick touch point to make sure everyone is on track and has everything they need to do to complete this task. They never last anything longer than 15 minutes. Most of the time they last a lot shorter. Releases every 2 weeks sound like a lot. It really isn't. It does not mean that we have this brand new big feature every 2 weeks. Most of the releases are just bug and UI UX fixes. It really helps keep the app up to date and make sure we don't end up with stale tickets. As for the tickets, developers have their own Jira board with the technical tickets. For our board, 3+ people have their hands on every ticket that comes through. You can see in the screenshot there, the flow goes in progress to code review, to testing, to UI UX testing if needed, and then approved. In progress is for anything that is currently in development. Code review is when we assign it to a team member to look through the merge request on GitLab and read through the code. When that is approved, they sign it to a different team member to test. If it has UI UX changes, it gets assigned to a designer to verify those changes. Then finally, the ticket can be approved and the code can be merged in. It really helps catch a lot of bugs and coding issues before it even leaves our internal team, before even the stakeholders see it. We have found this is the best way to catch as many bugs as we can. We do have ways of watching for bugs that we may be unaware of, and that's with analytics and alerts. We track everything that happens within the app, and we have dashboards that visualize all of that data. It gives us the ability to monitor usage, and we can see that if something does dramatically changes, we know there has to be an issue and we can fix it right away. Our entire back end is filled with health monitoring. We have numerous alerts that are constantly monitoring analytics for anomalies. For example, we watch students get their football tickets through the app. We had one instance where we were seeing above normal tries at getting those tickets and actually found there was an issue within Ticketmaster's system. We contacted them and then found out that their system was down. We were aware in the bug of working on it before being told from athletics that there was an issue, and we could address it a lot faster. It really helps speed up the debugging timeline and helps all those involved not be as frustrated and stressed. Let me see, there it is. All right, that's all we have for the presentation portion. So we're gonna move on to our breakout sessions. All right, there we go, okay. We will break into 4 facilitated groups. Everyone can contribute to that Google Doc that was posted. The link is right next to the Zoom link for what you click to get here. We'll take about 10 minutes to discuss, I believe, unless something's changed there. And then when we come back together, I want everyone thinking about this. We will want one person from each group to share their group's highlights. And then at that time, we'll be taking about 2 minutes a group if we can. And so you might get cut off if you go over. But I think we can go ahead and split up.
So Kim, I just stopped the share and you take over, correct?
Yes. I'll create the rooms right now. It'll just take a couple minutes or seconds.
And again, we'll put a doc that all you can work from in the chat session. You can look at the notes. Roger, you were doing a lot of speaking.
There's lots of notes for it, so it should be easy.
I was hoping Chris would do the summary, or Jen, but we just talked about Agile methodology at ASU, specifically some just questions like how sprints are run and how effective they are and how, to optimize those. And then Chris asked us what impedes some of Agile techniques. And so people were talking about the different things that could impede that, like having to communicate clearly with the customers and making sure expectations are set and there's learning on both sides, and having the balance between requirements and Agile processes so that you have the appropriate planning, but you also have the flexibility that inherently happens in a timeline in Agile. Let's see, what else did I miss? Chris, or?
I think that's pretty good for the time. Thank you.
Awesome, perfect. So let's move on to group 2.
Any volunteers from group 2? That moved so fast, I didn't get to solicit any volunteers in this session. Warwick, Phil, anyone willing to summarize what we talked about?
So I'll go ahead. Well, Phil, yeah, you can go ahead too. Phil had a great question, so let's go with you, Phil.
So it was a good discussion. So one of the questions I had is just what's kind of the deviation between using Agile off the shelf versus how best it's implemented within the context of ASU and UTO. And Bobby had some great insights into that. One is just emphasizing people over processes, which I thought was really good. Deepak was asking Lisa some questions about just gathering input for the sprint releases, I believe. So it's a good discussion on that. And then Warwick, I know you had some questions, so maybe I'll kind of hand that off to you for that kind of last part.
I think the last part was really just that true partnership between the functional and the technical areas, the customers, and getting those feedback loops back to the team and understanding what are non-negotiables, right? What brings the highest value to all those different stakeholders.
Awesome. Is that good for group 2? Yeah. All right, let's move on to group 3.
We've got Frank Montoya willing to help present for us.
All right, I have to unmute myself, I guess. Anyway, speaking for group 3, so the question was asked, what is working in your teams? Kind of started with that question, or who's raise your hand if you're doing some kind of Agile today. So 7 of the 13 in our group are using a form of Agile today. I shared from a Salesforce team perspective that we are sprinting, and we are sprinting at a program level versus at a product level. And we have daily stand-ups, but those daily stand-ups are occur within the sub-teams within the Salesforce enterprise team. So the developers have their stand-up, the admins have their stand-up, the integration developers have their stand-up, and they actually run their own sprints. And we do weekly versus bi-weekly sprints is what we heard from Kelly. They do bi-weekly, we do weekly, and we release to migration on a weekly basis. And like it was also said, we don't necessarily always migrate this whole large new functionality, but instead UI fixes or bug fixes. And so we kind of operate in that manner. Then Robbie came in and he shared that Workday is currently using Kanban for doing support, and they also meet 2 times weekly. Robbie said from a PeopleSoft standpoint, there's PeopleSoft development is also using an Agile approach, whether it's a very small development project or a larger development project, and sprints are utilized. So I don't know if Robbie, you wanted to add anything more to that.
No, that's all. Thanks for recording up my.
Okay, so that's what we had in our notes before we got cut off.
Awesome, that sounds good. All right, and Amanda, you're gonna talk what we talked about in ours?
Sure. So we talked a little bit about initially kind of pain points with running Agile, and we talked about how lucky the mobile team is to get to really work on maybe 1-2 projects at a time versus some of the issues we faced, at least in SIO, is trying to work with resources that are split between 5-6 different projects and having successful sprints run in 2 weeks. We also talked a little bit about story pointing, which I know Krista said the team is going to start doing, I think, pretty soon.
I think we're gonna try.
And then we also, Krista mentioned just how important and successful it's been for them to have that dev only technical board with all their Jira tickets that they go over, they work through. She said the team's been wonderful in jumping in and helping each other when they have tickets that are complicated or need a couple of different sets of eyes, which I actually thought was really important in terms of, you know, creating that team mentality and working together. Hey, did I miss anything?
I think you covered it.
Cool.
Great.
I think that's it for the groups.
Well, I'll just say one thing. I know we were asked to do something that we didn't as a group. We were asked to how do we bridge the relationship between culture and innovation. And as we go back to the deck, one thing that I heard come through in what just got summarized is that when you can be responsive to whoever the customer of the project is, you can then have the culture to be innovative and you can allow new things to come up. You can be responsive. I mean, Krista shared how we could even help our third party Ticketmaster understand they had problems because we saw something differently. So I think that's just one really important theme that I heard in our breakout group and through some of the other ones too. So being close to the customer. All right, so thanks for bearing with us here. In wrapping up, again, don't forget that you do have time to plan. Planning makes sense. The better you plan, the actual more established mission, and then these other things can follow. So dedicated resources where possible. I mean, you heard from Amanda's update, it's not always possible, but you still want to think about capacity. Don't forget clear roles and responsibilities. Accountability is critical. I mean, we allow folks to make their own decisions here. I don't like to get into having to approve every single UX decision. It just there'd be just too much. And so we have ways to allow decisions. We have checkpoints before go lives that are lightweight. A lot of it's based on trust. Those channels exist, whether it's communication, decision-making, budgeting. We had actually, Roger Kohler had a good idea on some budgeting channels. We'll see what we do there. Again, context. Give everyone on the team the same context where possible. So sometimes you have to document. Lisa actually called out document is non-negotiable. So get common mission, common processes. The flexibility, have the flexibility so you can do what needs to be done when things come up that you didn't expect, because they will. And then Agile is not about the technology. Technology is just a piece to it. So thanks for bearing with us. And I guess we will get you all back to the full Empower session. Thanks, everyone.